Good morning. I'm Dena Wright, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees here at South Valley UU Society. My pronouns are she and her. Come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter your gender, whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes. You are welcome here. No matter what you have experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God all of the time or some of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. You are welcome here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society.
Good morning again. All are welcome here, as Dena Wright just said. My name is Reverend Karen Madrone, and my pronouns are she and hers. As I said earlier, today is my last service here with South Valley. It's hard to believe that our year is almost at an end. In today's service, we will be exploring what is the church and faith movements here for now at this particular point in time. Let us explore that question together. For today's call to worship, I have chosen the words of Reverend Hope Johnson. This is called Keep Your Dreams Alive. Listen, light the way, lend a hand, make decisions, commit, take risks, fail forward, build community, nurture meaningful relationships, be real, give thanks, invest in someone or something that you believe in. Live, love, dream. Dream big, change the world, lead, and keep your dreams alive. Our in-gathering song is number 1054. John Berquist will be singing it, and the lyrics will be put in the chat box. The song is called Let This Be a House of Peace.
Let this be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be our house, a haven for the healing, an open room for question and our inspiration. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of freedom, guardian of dignity and worth held deep inside us. Let this be our house, a platform for the free voice, where all our sacred differences here shall not divide us. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be our house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let all in this house seek truth, where scientists and mystics abide in reverence here. Let this be our house, a house of our creation, where works of art and melodies consecrate the atmosphere. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be our house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be our house of peace.
Natalie is going to put the chalice. Let me start again. Welcome. Natalie is going to put the chalice lighting words in the chat box. If you have a small candle or chalice of your own, we welcome you to light it with us. Stephen is going to unmute everyone together. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, for the energy
of action.
Welcome. My name is Peter Verskor. Unitarian Universalist Society.
Peter, would you please repeat that you were muted? You're fine now, you just need to start from the beginning again. No, now you're muted again. Rick, thank you.
Sorry,
okay. Go ahead.
Let me begin again. I'm sorry. My name is Peter Verskor, and I am today's lay leader, worship leader. Sorry, the pronouns I use are he, him, and his. I'd like to welcome you to South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society this morning. We are an intentionally diverse religious community. All are welcome here. We'd like to extend an especially warm welcome to those of you who are visiting us for the first time. We're so glad you're here. We do have a connection card, and you can drop it into the chat box, any of our newcomers, so that you can be connected to our community. This is a caring, supportive community. During this time of physical distancing, we are working to be creative in how we take care of each other. A group of members are actively reaching out to folks in our community and will continue to do so while we are in this pandemic. The pastoral care card has been put on our website and is in the link, and Natalie is going to put that in our chat box. And I just wanted to say, I've come to realize, and do you agree that if I can make the world a little bit happier, I myself might be happier? Isn't that what all this activity is that people are fighting for today? All of our online services are intergenerational. Summer religious exploration is coming up soon. To find out more about the RE classes, review the Happenings newsletter and contact Rebecca Britt, our Director of Religious Exploration, at her email address that Anne will put in the chat box. Keep updated on activities that are part of the South Valley, and so we encourage you to use the Google Calendar on the South Valley website. If you would like to host a group gathering, please use the reservation form on the website. Our administrator, Cindy Martin, will help you get set up on Zoom for your gathering. Although we are physically separate, we are still connected. And this is the last service that Karen will preach. And after today's service, there will be a virtual reception for Reverend Karen, and we will be staying in the same Zoom room. We will now share the warmth of community. Please take this time to say hello to each other in the chat box. Please say where you are joining us from. Everybody will be unmuted.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Peter.
Hi.
Hi, Peter.
Peter, you look gorgeous.
Yeah, you look very handsome.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody. We're in Murray.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
Hey, second.
Good to see everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Brenda,
Guten Morgen.
Hi.
Tina,
Hey, John. Good to see you. Joe.
good to see you too.
Rosemary. Right here. Cinnamon.
Hello.
Cinnamon. Hi.
Greetings.
Greetings. Oh,
Hello?
nice library.
Hi, Travis. Oh, hi, Travis.
Good to see everybody. Let us move forward with our time for all ages.
All right, so I'm going to share. I'm going to tell the story, and Stephen's going to screen share the slideshow for us. All right, this is Porpoise and Fish Prepare for Worship by Rebecca Britt, Porpoise and Fish. So we got this story ready. Hold on, I'm so sorry, I'm getting interrupted. Okay, Fish says that he has made his own story. So can we go to the next slide to see what that story is? Oh, okay, new story. Just finding out about this myself. So this is no longer Porpoise and Fish Get Ready for Worship. It's by Fish only. It's called Fish Gets Things Back on Track. All right, next slide. So Porpoise was cleaning the art supplies off my desk. I don't know if you know this, but we Zoom from my craft table every Sunday. So here's a picture of Porpoise near my laptop, getting ready. And he called out, they called out, Fish, come on, come help me choose which pens we'll use to color during worship, because usually Fish helped get ready, and Porpoise was starting to get worried. Next slide. Fish came to join Porpoise on the desk, but something was a little strange, and Fish had my car keys. Fish, Porpoise said, Rebecca already loses her keys often enough. I don't think we should bring her keys to the worship space. I think that's exactly what we should do, Fish said, but not this silly spot. We have to go back to South Valley. It's time to get worship back on track. With that, Fish swam outside, Porpoise chasing after him. Next slide. Fish went to my car, but he couldn't quite figure out how to get inside. Oh my gosh, Porpoise said. What are you doing? I'm getting this show on the road. We don't get to do any of the stuff we like online. No hugs, no snacks, no RE classrooms. Next slide. Fish managed to get in, and Porpoise was trying everything they could to stop him. Fish, come on. You know we're meeting online to care for each other and be safe. No one's even going to be there. I'm a trendsetter, Fish said. Once I show up, people will be right there. Come on, this is what we need right now. Porpoise realized there was no convincing Fish. The best thing they could do for their friend was come along and help them understand that they were wrong in being very silly. All right, next slide. I have a statement for my car insurance that I must read. No Fish drove during the making of this Time for All Ages. Next slide. Now they're outside South Valley, and Fish was so excited. He couldn't wait to see the people he hadn't seen in person in a while, or even ever seen in person. Like Bonnie and Caden and so many other people he wanted to get to know in person. Porpoise was a little confused. Well, Caden is still in another state, and so are a lot of people we've met while we were online. We see them online, but haven't seen them in person for other reasons. Well, we need to fix that, Fish exclaimed. I bet we can make it better, but right now, we get to figure out how to welcome more people the best. Fish figured that was kind of true. Next slide. In my office on the Watership stretcher, Fish said, well, speaking of best, I bet we'll get to see Charlie and Miles and all the other RE kids and we can give them big hugs. But remember, Porpoise interrupted, I know, we're showing them we care by being apart. Ugh, well, at least we get to see them twice a week now, sometimes more. We only saw them on Sundays before. That's true, Porpoise agreed. Next slide. They went up to the sanctuary and waited. The sanctuary was empty, and they thought surely someone would come soon. Porpoise started to look around the sanctuary. Even though they had so many positive thoughts, they began to feel sad. They'd never see Reverend Karen deliver a sermon in here again, and it'd be a while before they saw the choir. They knew that meeting online was special because it meant that people from far away could share their stories and music. They got to go to meetings about racial justice and meet new people and learn that way. They remembered the anti-racist parent training and more meetings they had coming up, the kind they'd never got to do before. Even Drag Queen Story Hour with Mrs. Yuka from Nebraska. They'd never even been to Nebraska, and they got to meet Mrs. Yuka. There were so many possibilities, but they still felt sad. Porpoise tried to say these thoughts. I guess at least Fish had heard all the things Porpoise was thinking before, so they didn't have to say them. Fish patted his friend. There's lots of good things about meeting online, lots of opportunities. Yeah, Porpoise said, but I understand why you want to come back here. But look, no one's in the sanctuary. Our community isn't here. They're everywhere and together at the same time. Fish agreed. When we come back here, there'll be so many new things we know how to do. So let's go home for worship. Next slide. Once again, I'm being called by Geico to read No Marine Mammals Drove during the making of This Time for All Ages. Although one car owner was very upset when they got home. This time, though, Porpoise got to drive. All right, next slide. The end.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I love your stories, and I will definitely miss the way you put them together. Porpoise and Fish have taken on a life of their own. I ask everybody to please take a moment to get centered wherever you are, to put down, if you have extra devices around you, to put them down, and to just join us here in this particular space, and whatever that means for you, even if you have to sit back in your chair, close your eyes, whatever that feels like in your body to be centered in this moment. Let's take a moment of silence together. Dear God, Holy One, Spirit of love within each of us, whatever our belief system, we are here together, supporting each other through an amazing time in the history of the world. Nobody knew last fall that eventually we would be in a pandemic. and we would be having to learn how to be together in much more creative and different ways than ever imagined. We say this every week, and yet we keep finding new ways. Thank you for that ongoing spirit of creativity within each of us, within the whole world, as we find ways to be supportive of each other, to ask difficult questions, and to still be there for each other across time and space. Today, I particularly want to lift up our trans siblings who have been affected by our administration that just declared that trans people don't deserve the same rights to health access, health care that everybody does. We know that that is not true. And we know that all people deserve access to health care. All people. Our country is doing an evil thing to all people by not having healthcare access for everyone all the time. But in this particular moment of deliberately taking away healthcare to trans people is wrong. We stand on the side of support and love for every single person. Thank you, God, for our reminder of what we stand for in all things, coming back to the question of inherent worth and dignity for all people. Sometimes when we are stumbling, when we are judgmental, please remind us that this is what we say we believe. And if we believe that, then we will open our minds, open our hearts, open every single way we can to be supportive to all people everywhere. Let us hold that energy together. Let us be resourceful. Let us commit to giving funds to support everyone in their efforts to be free. May we all be free one day. Amen. And now Rick is going to play an interlude.
Hey, everybody. So a few years ago, I kind of discovered a poet by the name of Ella Wheeler Wilcox. Ella is famous for a line that many have heard. The line is, "Laugh and the world laughs with you, weep and you weep alone. For the sad old earth must borrow its mirth, but has trouble enough of its own." And I looked through her poems trying to find one that I might put to music. And I actually enjoyed two of them so much that I took them to Richard Coleman, and he and I put them to some chords. And I'll perform for you a poem called Sea. If one proves weak, whom you fancy strong or false, who you fancy true, just ease the smart of your wounded heart by the thought that it's not you. If many forget a promise made and your faith falls into dust, then look meanwhile in your mirror and smile and say, I am the one to trust. If you search in vain for an aging face, unharrowed by fretful tears, then make right now and keep a vow to grow in grace with the years. lose your faith in the word of man and go from the port of youth. Just say as you sail, I will not fail to keep to the course of truth. For this is the way, the only way, at least it so seems to me. It's up to you to be and to do what you look for in others. See. Thank you.
And now it's time for our offertory. And I just want to say, I'm sure everybody is frustrated, and this has tried our patience so very terribly. And so if there's anything you can do to make somebody happy, little things count. But anyway, let's get on with our offertory. It is our practice at South Valley to share our Sunday worship offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. For May and June, we have selected the Navajo and Hopi Families COVID-19 Relief Fund. This organization, founded and operated by Indigenous community organizers, is responding to the health crisis by raising funds and organizing delivery of groceries, water, and health supplies directly to vulnerable Navajo and Hopi elders and their families. South Valley now has an app for giving. We have an account on Giveify. This allows South Valley to support the work of the South Valley community during this pandemic. You're invited to give using the link that Elena is going to put in the chat box, or you can go to your phone and download that app. Using this app will help South Valley tremendously during this time of physical distancing. Now, Natalie is going to put our offertory words in the chat box, and let us read these words together. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gift.
And now let us bless this offering. Everyone would please put out your hands. Even though we are not in the same physical space, I believe that our energy is being sent to today's offering. For all we have received, all we have found the courage to give, may we be truly thankful. May these gifts be a blessing to South Valley and to the Navajo and Hopi families COVID-19 Relief Fund. Thank you for your gifts.
And Reverend Karen found a prayer written by Egbert Ethelred Brown, and it sounds very, very new, but I really don't know. So I'm going to read the prayer from, again, Egbert Ethelred Brown. Those two first names are former kings of England for you historians. Let me begin. As we face a troubled and puzzled world, we too are troubled, puzzled. As our fond dreams remain unrealized and our bright hopes of yesterday wither in the bitter disappointments of today, our courage fails, our spirits droop, our faith trembles, and frustrated, we bow our heads in despair. Nevertheless, we come to God in this hour of worship, in this house of prayer. As we pray, time, O God, may we ourselves be at peace with the world, with ourselves, and with Thee. May we know that without love, there will never be peace. Teach us, therefore, to love.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate you reading that. The last few weeks have been unbelievable. Since at least 2014, we have seen the Black Lives Matter movement have years of protests in response to extrajudicial killings of Black people. But for many reasons, these last few weeks have been different. So different that I have been bombarded with corporate statements of support for Black Lives Matter. I'm guessing many of you have too. Almost every day there's yet another email, even today from Smith's. I was just, it's so amazing to me that all of a sudden supporting Black Lives Matter is the thing to do. And even last week, NASCAR issued a statement saying it will no longer allow the Confederate flag to be flown. And then the very next day, they issued a statement saying they support the GLBTQ community. Everybody was in shock. Like, who is NASCAR anyway? We thought they were somebody different. Like, what is going on? And then this morning, I saw that the president of the Southern Baptist Convention issued a statement to the congregations, these Baptist congregations, and informing them and encouraging them and saying that they need to declare that Black Lives Matter and to denounce using the statement, all lives matter. That was like, somehow this is shocking, because the reality is if they read the Gospels, if they read Jesus's words, this is a no-brainer that Jesus himself would have stood on the rights for Black lives. So now we are in this place where all of a sudden everything is topsy-turvy, and we are having to really stand in this place of saying, yes, I believe this. Even something as ordinary like a baby names website, something really innocuous, all of a sudden, even they are on this side. So I wanted to read to you something that babynames.com put on their website last week. They changed their website to say this. At the very top, it's all Black with words in white text that says, each of these names was someone's baby. Emmett Till, Eric Garner, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many more. The page goes down, 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 all these names. It was pretty stunning when I saw that. Everybody was sharing, going, what is happening? That even the Baby Names website is taking a stand. It was just a beautiful reminder that each of these Black people, like we think about adults and we forget everybody started off as a baby with people, families who loved them and cared for them and protected them. And we have to remind ourselves of that. None of these people deserve to die at the hands of white supremacy. When George Floyd was killed on May 25th, the worship service following that day was the teacher/leader and long-term member recognition service. I really struggled because I felt like I could not end that service because there were so many people that needed to be honored, and it was part of our end-of-year ritual service. So I left it mostly the same, put some references in the prayer itself, but we left it as it was because it's important to recognize to have these rituals. And then the following Sunday was our multi-congregation pride service, and as wonderful as it was, because we had put so much effort into it and there were 5 congregations participating, and yes, I will lift up that all of the music was provided by South Valley musicians, that even with all of that, we were in a tough place because we could not just undo that entire service. So here is my chance. This is the last opportunity I have to say something here. I could not address this. The service was supposed to be, and the title I had been going with for over a month, excuse me, was A Joyful Goodbye. It was supposed to be about leaving. There will be a leaving ritual soon, but this is I feel like I need to say these things here and now. I had to say this because it's also combined with still in a pandemic, and the number of COVID-19 cases continues to rise here in the state of Utah. All of a sudden, like every day, more and more cases in this state. And we are still in this situation where being physically together is a dangerous thing to do. We are living in times that none of us could have possibly imagined. Here in my last sermon, I feel like there's still so much I want to say. And it's really hard sometimes being a minister because you have to like lay out the things you want to say over the course of the year, and you just won't get to everything, and that's just how it is. And I know that that's impossible. But I will say this, we UUs have our history and our faith, yes, but I believe that wherever possible, our role is to be asking ourselves if we are the ones who should actually be speaking. Yes, I know that sounds weird because the profession of ministry sounds like it's about speaking. I did take 2 preaching classes in seminary. It's all about like, what can you actually say out loud? But sometimes the role that you need to play is lifting up other people's voices, especially if you are a white minister like myself. I do not always have to be the person who is speaking, and I'm very clear about that. You might not realize it, but whenever possible, I try to lift up voices of people of color. The reading that Peter shared earlier is from Egbert Ethelred Brown, and unfortunately, that was written in the 1920s. The concerns are still the same. We are still trying to live in a just and peaceful world. Egbert Ethelred Brown was a Unitarian minister who was from Jamaica and moved to Harlem, and he started a Unitarian church there. He got mixed support from the American Unitarian Association, and eventually he was defellowshipped. The whole story is really stunning, and it's quite embarrassing, actually, that we do not have a church in Harlem because of what the American Unitarian Association did to Egbert Ethelred Brown. The Unitarians, Universalists, and Unitarian Universalists, even up to and including today, are not the anti-racists we think we are. Not even close. We all have so much more learning and growing to do. It can feel really overwhelming, but we still need to do it. It can feel like, what in the world are we going to do? And we can just shut down, but that is not the correct response. Something being hard is not a reason to not do it. An example of the UU world doing better about its own racism is Reverend Hope Johnson, a New York City minister who is an African-American woman, and she is doing amazing ministry. That was her reading that I read at the beginning of this service. And yesterday, Reverend Viola Abbott, a brand new ordained minister, was ordained yesterday, even online in this Zoom format. I am so thrilled that more people of color are being ordained in our UU movement, and that she is one example of some of our new movement happening. We will no longer have situations where people of color are being discouraged by either the Unitarians or the Universalists. Our Unitarian and Universalist and UU histories include slaveholders and people who supported the eugenics movement, as well as abolitionists and people who died in the civil rights movement. We, like all faith movements, have things to be proud of, and things that, when you read about them, are quite shocking. Our hands are not nearly as clean as we like to believe that they are. And yet, we cannot allow paralysis at the hugeness of the moment keep us from moving forward. I'm proud that South Valley didn't allow this pandemic that has waylaid other congregations to allow South Valley to stop completely. However, there are many small group activities that could still be happening, but for whatever reason, right now, they are not. This is not the time to stop gathering in community, even if it's virtual. This is no time to say, well, I guess because we're in a pandemic or because we're in a Zoom that we can't still gather. You can still gather. The church has a Zoom account. I am begging you to please use it, to time to spend together. It's very important that the community itself is more than what happens during a worship service. Something that struck me at the beginning of the shutdown was that all of a sudden we were all using a huge amount of technology that helped us to get connected. And you know, the interesting thing, all of that technology already existed. None of the technology that we are using right now was created in response to the pandemic. It all existed before, but we did not use it. It never occurred to us to do many of these things. And so all of a sudden, we are in a situation where we have to be created because that's really, we have no choice. And so all of these ways are becoming even more available, even more useful. And so we are become more aware of what is out there. Some programs like Google Hangouts are actually improving. Zoom has improved some of what they do, and so that has helped all of us. But these things were already there. I see that in a similar way regarding the anti-racist work we need to do. For the last several weeks, some of us have been sharing in the church Facebook group and on the community listserv many, many resources that exist to help us become anti-racist and become much more educated. But do you know what the reality is? All of those resources have existed for a while. Right now, trending on one of the top bestseller lists is the book, White Fragility. Do you know that book has been out since at least 2015? That now people are reading it. It is amazing. And so please know that all of those things have already existed. We have no reason to not avail ourselves of these resources. They are out there, and it is our time to start learning, start speaking out right now. We have so much more learning to do, friends, so much. I ran across this statement from Michelle Silverthorne, an anti-racist educator, and she raised some really important statements that really brought home to me some of the things that I need to do. So I wanted to read this to you. She says, name 3 Black journalists or websites you follow. Name 3 Black authors whose books have influenced you, and while you're at it, 3 people who you shared those books with. Name 3 tenets of the Black Lives Matter movement. Name 3 racist remarks that you remember hearing, challenging, and you corrected. If any of these things are giving you pause, now is the time to learn. We all have access to this amazing thing we are all using right now, the internet, and the huge amount of resources that are available have always been available. We have to take stands. We have to be public about supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. This is one of the few days when I'm wearing a t-shirt to service, but I felt like it was important to say it out loud that in this opportunity, even if we were meeting inside the building, I would have still worn this t-shirt, that we need to be visible. We must be willing also to decenter whiteness wherever possible. To quote the author Austin Channing Brown, the work of anti-racism is the work of becoming a better human to other humans, thinking about how I can make sure other people's voices are lifted up. In this, my last service here, I want to lift up the ways that technology can also help decenter whiteness. In one of my early services with you all, I used my friend Reggie Harris's song, I'm Ready. This was a song that we used at the end, and people really enjoyed it, and we all danced together. Today, we are going to end with a song written and performed by Nina Simone, an amazing singer and civil rights activist. I realize that South Valley highly values its musicians and performers. All of that is well and good. You are very talented musicians and performers, and I am impressed with what you have. However, have you noticed that South Valley, including its musicians, is predominantly white? If you would like to hear other voices, literally hear them and see them, I highly recommend deliberately using readings and music from people of color. We cannot, white people like myself, I'm not making the assumption that everybody in this service is white, but those of us who are white need to learn how to step back and not put ourselves the center at all of the time. Being exposed to things we don't know. I'm guessing your parents made you read things that were different from what was that you were used to. Every time you read something new, it expands your awareness. You have to expand. You have to read things, not just things like white fragility, but things like literature from other cultures that you are unaware of. You have to keep growing, making that an awareness for yourself. And so I encourage you, especially in these technology services, there is no reason whatsoever to not use videos or music, things from other people outside of the South Valley community. I know of several congregations last week who turned over the entire sermon to another UU minister of color, and they paid her for that, because it's more important to have other people's voices lifted up at this time. Whenever possible, that is my goal. I am not the center of attention, and we white people need to learn how to step back whenever possible. I encourage you to use music from many other genres. My home church, we sing music in many other languages. We have to make sure that we are not the center of attention wherever we can. We have to remind ourselves that the world does not revolve around ourselves and our ability to understand everything. Maybe there are things we don't know. We have to keep learning. South Valley cannot continue making white people and white people's words the center of this service. Please try to do this in the future. Now is the time, it has always been the time, to think differently, to be more curious, to be more thoughtful, to expand all the possibilities. The only thing limiting us is ourselves. You can do this work. I believe in you, but you have to be willing to try new things, to break out of the mold that has kept South Valley from growing, changing, and adapting as much as it could. I have seen a lot of progress in my year with you, yes, and there is so much more to go. I see who you are and what you can be. Always keep who you can be in the future in your mind. What I know for sure is that you can do it. Keep going. Question everything. And so what is the church here for now? Some of you may be wondering that, especially since we are so far from each other. Some of you may be even feeling like what we do isn't really a real worship service. I encourage you to know that us being together, even when we are physically apart, is still very real. The entire religion world is wondering about what does community look like in this world we are living now, when we have to think about how even being physically together could be dangerous. It's a very strange oxymoron to live in, that we need each other and we physically need to stay apart. I believe it's time to be even more creative, even more thoughtful, even more caring. The boxes we have been living in are not acceptable anymore. We have to keep asking ourselves the question, when we come across roadblocks, when we think to ourselves, either individually or as a group, that can't be done, we've never done that before. Ask yourself, is that really true? Over and over again, is that really true? Can we really not do that? What is actually true? Is there another way we could think to do this? Keep being creative, keep questioning everything. I want to end with showing you this quote. It kind of makes me cry. I have kept this block on my desk all year. I got it at General Assembly last year. It's a quote from Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, and I wrote a paper about her in my last semester. And so I felt especially blessed when I ran across this block with her quote on it at GA, just like 2 months after graduating. She was a Black woman who fought for abolition, and she was a member of the Unitarian Church of Philadelphia. She was a prolific writer and orator. This is one of her quotes. "There is a light beyond the darkness, joy beyond the pain. The shadows bear promise of a brighter coming day." Friends, I hold this to be true for myself, for each of you, and for this congregation as a whole. There is a brighter coming day, but it will only come with each of you working for it. May you feel that in your bones, deep down in your soul, that this will happen. Amen. And now I would like to turn the floor over to Ann Scarborough, your board president, of release that we are all going to do together. Stephen, you can unmute everybody.
Reverend Karen, thank you for your words of challenge. We will step forward and embrace those and carry those forward. Thank you. Please join me in this ritual of release. Our church family is constantly changing. People come and go. Babies are born. Children grow up. People commit themselves to one another. Loved ones and friends among us come to the end of their lives. Individuals move into our community and church life. Others leave us, moving away to new places, new experiences, and new opportunities. It is important and right that we recognize these times of passage, of endings and beginnings. In May of 2019, this congregation hired Reverend Karen Madrone to serve as our interim minister.
We're just ending this. You can stay
I
right up.
thank South Valley UU Society, its members and friends and staff for the love, kindness, and support shown to me this year. I ask forgiveness for the mistakes I have made. I am grateful for the ways my leadership has been accepted. As I leave, I carry with me all that I have learned here.
And the people now say, we receive your thankfulness, offer forgiveness, and accept that you now leave to minister elsewhere.
We express
Our gratitude for your time among us.
We ask
your forgiveness for our mistakes, your influence on our lives, not leave us at your departure.
I forgive you and accept your gratitude, trusting that our time together and our parting are all of life's evolution.
And you, the congregation, the members and friends of South Valley UU Society, Do you release Reverend Karen from the duties of this position? And the people say, we do.
We do.
Do you offer your encouragement for her ministry serving the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Decatur, Illinois?
We do.
We do.
Do.
Do you, Reverend Karen, release this church from turning to you and depending on you?
I do.
Do you offer your encouragement for the continued ministry here and on the relationship with another who will come to serve?
I do.
We give thanks for the moments we have shared with Reverend Karen in worship, in learning, in service. We pray that her journey will be safe and meaningful as she moves to a new ministry. And we all say, so may we be.
So may we be.
Thank you all. And now we're going to have our closing hymn, actually sung by Nina Simone, that Stephen Carter is going to share with everyone. This is a positive, uplifting song. I encourage you to stand and move as you feel so called.
Let's stand and move. We like Nina Simone. Yeah, it was in an egg carton.
Ain't got no home, ain't got no shoes, ain't got no money, ain't got no class, ain't got no skirts, ain't got no sweaters, ain't got no perfume, ain't got no love, ain't got no faith. I ain't got no culture, ain't got no mother, ain't got no father, ain't got no brother, ain't got no children, ain't got no aunts, ain't got no uncles, ain't got no love, ain't got no mind. I ain't got no country, ain't got no schooling, ain't got no friends, ain't got no nothing, ain't got no water, ain't got no air, ain't got no smoke, ain't got no ticket, ain't got no water, ain't got no love, ain't got no faith, ain't got no God, ain't got no wine, ain't got no money. Ain't got no faith, ain't got no God, ain't got no love. And what about God? Why am I alive anyway? Yeah, what about God? Nobody can take away. I got my hair, got my head, got my brains, got my head, got my eyes, got my nose, got my mouth. I got my sense. I got my arms, got my hands, got my fingers, got my legs, got my feet, got my toes, got my liver, got my blood. I've got life.
Thank you. And before we extinguish our chalice, I just wanted to say, in case you haven't heard, President Trump announced on Friday that he plans to ban transgender persons from coverage under the Affordable Care Act. Now, we can do something about this. Tell your neighbors, write to your senators and representatives in Congress, email your legislators, email your governor. We can do something. And so now we're going to let Natalie put the chalice extinguishing words in the chat box. You're invited to stand and say our chalice extinguishing words together. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of community, the light of truth, or the energy of action. We hold each other in our hearts until we meet again.
Okay, something else.
Friends, for our benediction, I want us to remember wherever we are one and we are loved. If you could just put your hands up, and maybe Peter, Stephen, if you could change the view to the gallery view so we can all see each other. Just put your hands up and send out the energy to everybody. We are one and we are loved. Please take these hands and go do your work in the world to make a better place for everyone. Amen.
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 Our service is now ended, and Stephen can stop the recording.